Right. Do we need to do a clapperboard?
Yeah,
Did you bring one with you? There we go. The
there we
professional.
go. Yeah.
So hi everyone. My name's Dan Wilson. I am one of the lead teachers at Shillington, and today I'm joined by Tim, who is one of our graduates. So we were just talking about this, Tim. So you graduated in September 20.
Yes, yeah, September 2025. A very enjoyable 3 months.
Amazing, amazing. So obviously, so you started it. We just did a little bit of quick maths between us there, right? And we
Yeah.
started the course May 2025. So what were you doing before Shillington?
Before Shillington, I was mainly doing video production at quite a low level, so I had a little bit of knowledge with, like, moving pixels around screens, but, I had a real interest and love for graphic design, so I wanted to jump into Shillington to really immerse myself in that world.
Amazing, amazing. Just out of curiosity, because I don't think we've ever actually discussed this. How long was the the decision making process before you decided to kind of take the leap?
Oh, man, it was a short, sharp decision. I
Yeah.
remember speaking to a good friend of mine who is a graphic designer, and he was, like, raving about you guys, and he showed me the course, and I honestly think within days, I was like, "I'm gonna take the plunge." My history of education and my I kind of, the way I thought of education was tainted from school. I didn't really enjoy school at all, and I got out of it as soon as I could. But I knew that I just had to take a leap and commit. Yeah, I'm glad I did.
Yeah, amazing. And I think that was one thing I think we discussed when you were on the course is just like you had that amazing level of like self-awareness, like you knew what you wanted to get from the course, you knew why you were on the course. And that kind of from my side, that made everything a lot easier and kind of because obviously like for context, like we
Yeah.
worked together closely throughout the 3 months, but I was also like project managing you throughout portfolio time. And I think just
Yes.
because you knew what you wanted to get from it, it made my side of things a lot easier.
That's great, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I feel like I remember, like, just constantly thinking, I need to take my own identity out of this because otherwise everything's just gonna look like a Rolling Stones album cover, which is great, you know, when that aesthetic needs to shine through, but, you know, 9 times out of 10, people don't want it to look like, Sticky Fingers.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is that that's a balancing act where it's like, how do we make sure we serve the brief, answer the brief, client's happy, we're making something that's going to be commercially viable and it's still engaging without bringing too much of like your own kind of preconceived notions of what is good or bad to it, I guess, right?
Exactly that.
And I think the pros that leads us really nicely into kind of just talking through one of your projects, I think. Because I think what you're just talking about there and that kind of challenge you've hit upon, the kind of the way out of that is the
Yeah.
process you went through. So yeah, I think that leads us perfectly into looking at one of your projects. So do you want to just kind of introduce the projects that you want to talk through?
Yeah. So this project, if out of all the projects that we did, this was almost the most love-hate project. At points, I was just looking at the what I had on the screen, just thinking, I can't stand this. I'm in a real jam." And it was just going back to the my mood board and iterating the hell out of it that eventually got me to where I needed to be. Let me let me share my here we go. So the project was a rebrand project. So I landed on a local pizzeria that's called Diana Pizza. It's still called Diana Pizza. And it's an extremely dank, scary looking place, but it does incredible pizza and it doesn't get the custom that it deserves because it looks like you're going to get murdered when you go in there.
Yeah, never a good selling point.
Never a good selling point. And so I knew with it, we kind of had a lot of, do you remember us speaking about how we had quite a lot to play with because it being a pizza shop, it could be kind of themed around absolutely anything in
Yeah.
reality, Could have a pizza shop about pink elephants if we wanted to. But we landed on what I wanted to do was just really encapsulate the joy that you feel when you open the pizza box. That's where we landed on this. I came up with this name, lift off, because you're lifting off the lid, unbox the heat, cue the joy, and you can see that was my initial color scheme. And
So this was just for context. This is kind of so this what we're seeing here is your working kind of Figma files from when we were at that stage of portfolio time putting all this together, right? And what
yeah,
we're seeing here, so you've got this great concept, and then this first artwork that we're seeing, this is kind of where you were at the end of kind of like class time when we were working on this before we had the opportunity to revisit it, right?
exactly that. Yeah, and I think straight away you can tell that the kind of color choice and the branding wasn't really hitting home the identity of what I was aiming for. Even if you take the last line, "Little spark of joy," I remember just going to bed and thinking, because at Shillington, I would always, stay up super late and then just be dreaming, waking up in hot sweats, thinking, what the hell am I doing with this project? This isn't coming together. Um, and I remember, yeah, just rolling this one round in my head and go, I can't get my head around the colors.
It's so funny because everything else is almost there, isn't it? And it's just
Yeah,
that thing, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I remember saying how with this I was super happy with just the simplicity of the type lockup and
Yeah,
how effective it was just moving into different variations. Those chevron shape. This chevron shape's great.
yeah.
It like jumping up over this dot. I think there's a lot that's working here, but the color was letting it down. Some other funky stuff that I oh yeah, this
Yeah,
was the this ended up being used for some of the menu design. This was lifted from another project that I was doing. I didn't get an opportunity to use this style, but I managed to pull this style into Liftoff. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the original mood boards then.
yeah, go for it.
Here we go. One of the things that Shillington really, really, has taught me that I still use now is these mood boards and just how important it is to get some images together that feel pretty cohesive, just so you know where you're coming from. At all times, you can just refer back to the mood board. But so here's my logo mood board. As you can see, it's all quite simplistic stuff, nice and bold. And over here is my visual language mood board, refined, loud, and elevating.
Nice, and you can definitely see kind of how those influences informed kind of where you were in class time and kind of, it's funny because obviously, me and you are probably in the same position where we've maybe not looked at this project for a while now, and it's great to kind of revisit it and see kind of where how what a strong position it was even after class time. It was absolutely fantastic. Can we see what happened then when you kind of tweaked those colors?
Let's have a look. So, let's have a quick look at that. Final design from class. There we go. That's it mocked up with some app adverts.
So many good moments within it though, so much life. It's great.
And then here we go. This is when things really begin to lift off. And it was this image here that I'd pulled from a super early iteration of the lift off mood board that I just thought had so much so much life to it, so much life in this image, and it has that really playful text. And so I thought I'd pull this, the feelings and the color schemes from here, just give it a go on the lift off with the Liftoff brand, which led me to look deeper into those colors. And I ended up going down the route of this Italian disco vibe. And there's some beautiful imagery here. But there was just a certain theme of color running through it, which was this real fuchsia pink and this electric green. Here's a really good example of how those clashy colors have so much life to them, you know?
Yeah, and I think that was a real it's really interesting because, at the start of this conversation, you were talking about, knowing when to kind of leave your own aesthetic tastes and things like that, maybe, you know, leaving them to the side. But I think this is a perfect example of where it's like you're bringing in your own interests in music and your own interests in, maybe like interest in subcultures and interest in genres and bringing them together in an
Yep,
appropriate way. We're looking at pizza, we're looking at Italian music, we're looking at Italian culture and just bringing it all together in bringing all that into this pizza place in Bath, which kind of needs that injection of energy. It needs that Italo disco energy. Fantastic. And just to kind of like that, I think it's one of the magic moments of graphic design, is that where you can kind of bring into all of these kind of disparate things and just bring them together to create something that feels cohesive and it tells a story. And I think when you kind of brought this to the table and you're like, look, I've got these ideas and this is, I'm listening to these playlists and it feels exciting. And that
yep,
energy was infectious, wasn't it? And I think from there, that's when it kind of really just took on a whole new life of its own. Can we see how that evolved?
exactly that. That's where it really took off. That's where it really took off. And next thing you know, we've got the 3D version of the logo, which really felt like it was lifting off the. And as soon as I started mocking it up, I thought this is really going somewhere. It felt like it almost felt like a kitsch version of those for sale discount signs. You know, it feels like that place is trying to sell a sofa at 70% off, and it's almost like the most attention grabbing type and color imaginable. And this is when things, dare I say, this is when things started getting a bit too much. When I started playing around with these colors, there was one moment in particular when I mocked up what the app would look like, and it just feels like it feels like your pizza either isn't going to turn up, or you're going to get double charged, or they're going to take all the money from your bank account. This felt like, I remember spending quite a long time on this, then stepping back and going, this actually isn't the one. This isn't working, and it just felt way too oversaturated, and it was the opposite to a feast for the eyes. You know, it was a five course meal, which ended up making you feel a bit sick. Yeah, but gradually, I kind of toned things down. Mainly just using it on a white or transparent background really helped to sell it in. And this was a lovely moment, just
Yeah.
bringing together some of the tone of voice alongside the type lockup, stand by preparing for liftoff. And it was one of those moments where when you step back and you go, no, actually, I would wear that t-shirt. I'd wear that t-shirt. That's when you know things are working out.
Yeah.
And
And did do I remember right? Did you use AI to create some of these mock-ups as well?
yes, yeah, yeah, I did. There was some good moments here. This here, that was a lovely mock-up look. But yeah, I'm a huge actually, I'm not gonna say I'm a huge fan of Firefly, because there is, it has some moments, but with mock-ups and stuff, you can't really go wrong.
I think there was a great, I think what's kind of evident throughout the way you're talking about this work and showing this work is like, you know, there was a level of kind of patience where it was like trial and error and trying things out. And I think, throughout a lot of your projects, Tim, like with the gut busting comedy as well, it was about establishing you had this amazing design system and you had this kit of parts. And what we were doing here when we were in these like working files was like stress testing these things, seeing what worked, seeing what resonated with people, and like exactly like what you're talking about there of like tweaking the colors and
Yeah,
change colors and like how, sometimes you can make something, it feels very on brand, it feels like it's that world of liftoff, but then when you see it in real practice, it's like, oh, maybe it doesn't feel trustworthy anymore. You said you started to feel like you've overdone it maybe, and it's
yeah,
like, and this is the kind of stuff that like people need to talk about more in design, isn't it? Because it's like we're all guilty of this. We see these like final, shiny, amazing designs out in the world, and it just for some reason we just think that was easy. But like getting under the hood and looking at this process is so much more honest, I think. Right?
yeah, yeah. 100%. And I think for me, the, like the one of the hardest things pre Shillington, and occasionally still now, is going into a project and thinking of the final result before I've even begun to play around.
Yeah.
And with this project, because it was so open ended, I didn't have it was one of the few where I just didn't have any vision of where this was going to go, and that that is quite that's quite a frightening um, thought for me, because I always just I always cling on to one thing and then have that, that one image or that one video to work towards. This process that you're seeing here is almost the inner workings of my mind, of how I worked through stuff. The the nice thing was at the end of it was super enjoyable, and it actually made me realize that, yeah, I shouldn't I shouldn't be afraid of not having the final outcome
Yeah.
straight away. I should relish in in the experimentation, relish in those, in those early stages, because it can take you anywhere. And I think multiple times at Shillington, I was going down a route, and then I'd maybe find that I was unhappy with what was happening, and I'd just take a few steps back, go back to the mood board, and just
Mm.
fish around on that mood board for, another spark of inspiration, and then bounce off in a different direction.
Yeah. And I think that's a great kind of recap of like the journey you went on. And I just think it's fantastic that how, you know, having the confidence to feel like you don't have to rush to a conclusion and kind of it's not an easy process, is it, to realize where it's like, oh yeah, I need to just like live with this and try things out and test things out and just get comfortable with that. And it takes a certain level of it's like a mix of vulnerability and confidence at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly that. And I think I think it I think it does take I think it takes a lot of confidence to begin something without knowing how it's going to end. It's like, yeah, jumping into a swimming pool without knowing how to swim. But
Yeah,
eventually, you know, we're all humans. I mean, most of us can swim. Some of us are going to drown
yeah,
ultimately, but
amazing. That's absolutely fantastic. Are you okay to stop sharing, because I'm love to see your face again and chat about what you've been up to post Shillington. So what
yes.
so absolutely fantastic to see that project. And again, it's so interesting. I almost feel nostalgic for this project, and
Oh,
it wasn't even that long.
so do I. So do I. Like I said, I want a t-shirt. I want a lift off t-shirt. And when I get them printed up, Dan, there'll be one in the post being sent to you.
I
Because,
appreciate that. I can't wait. Can't wait. And that was just like one of your projects, obviously before we got together to chat, just like looking through the other projects that you were working on. And I think just such a strong portfolio. And like I said, like the big kind of strength of your work throughout was that getting those design systems, stress testing things, really good, strong sense of art direction as well, which maybe kind of informed by your background working within music videos and things like that. But yeah, so yeah, really just fantastic work. And
Thanks,
like I
man.
said, for me feeling nostalgic, I'm just remembering like how much fun it was to kind of like work on those projects and
Yeah,
kind of bouncing off the energy and the energy and enthusiasm that you brought. And I think, like you said, you were totally honest. Some days you don't know what you're doing, you don't know where you're going. And it's just kind of
yeah,
like trusting in that process and kind of being able to kind of try and come up with methods and ways of working you out of those situations.
yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, what's been happening with you since you graduated?
I'm now working at a design studio in Bristol, which
Amazing.
so much fun. It's extremely fast paced, and it's made me realize that the days when I was at Shillington going, how am I meant to do this in 4 hours? There are some things that I'm expected, that we're asked to do in 30 minutes, maybe even less. And
Yeah,
so Shillington was like the best training ground in terms of learning to churn things out quickly, because it's a short course. Don't have some of those projects, you don't have the luxury of time.
yeah.
And that's a blessing, because sometimes not thinking twice with with design is the best way to go.
Yeah, definitely. That kind of idea of not being, I'm sure you and myself as well. I'm definitely guilty of this in the past, where it's like I'll have an idea and sometimes I'll just be like, that is the one idea, and I must like just pursue only this idea. And it's like when you get those time limitations and you get that that kind of external pressure where it's like, no, we need lots of ideas. Don't just kind of like latch onto one and refine one. We want to see more and more and kind of,
Yeah,
we'd rather see a ton of kind of half baked, poorly executed ideas than one kind of refined, perfect thing. Right?
exactly that. And it's just that realization that the iterations can be as basic as hell, because
Yeah.
if it's a good iteration, you will be able to see it,
Yeah.
even if it's a little scribble on a piece of paper. You'll be able to see which one is the best of the bunch.
100%. 100%. Totally agree with that. Yeah. So that's amazing.
Iterations.
That's
Yeah, man.
amazing. You got this. So you work in kind of like I said, you came in to Shillington, you were really self-aware, knew that you maybe, not had the best experiences in education before, knew where you wanted to go. And obviously now you're working at a studio. The studio that you're working in kind of is very much in that world of music that you were very much
Yeah.
interested in your background as well. So it's not like you've shed your former self and like just
Yeah.
became something else. It's like you're taking those interests that you had prior to Shillington, combining that with the skills that you picked up,
Yeah.
and hopefully, being able to put into practice what you learn, and hopefully enjoying this new role that you're in.
Yeah. 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 It's really, it was one of the best decisions I've made, especially in terms of a career choice, if you want to call it that. But
Yeah.
as I say, it's probably restored my faith in education. You know, it's just that it suited me down to the ground, because it's so concise. It's such a concise way to do it. And if
Yeah.
you are somebody who, yeah, if you're somebody who finds it hard to sit still for longer than 5 minutes, it's a really good option, because when you're in it, you really feel like you can't think about anything else. You know, you're so engulfed by Shillington for those 3 months. On the day of my twin brother's wedding, I was at Shillington right up until the moment where I had to leave. I left, and then half an hour later, I was at my brother's wedding. But that's just commitment.
That is commitment cranked up to 11, and a moment I will never forget. And I think the perfect way to end this conversation, I will never forget that, where you're like, "Oh, Dad, I just got to dip out early," and I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, anything, any reason?" Like twin brothers getting married, and it was just like this mind blowing moment. It was like, get yourself to the wedding, get to that
Get
church.
yourself to church on time.
Exactly, exactly. But I think that's the perfect way to end. Tim, thank you so much for your time. I know this is your lunch break whilst you're at work,
This
so
is,
I'm really,
this
really,
is indeed, yeah.
really appreciate it. And I'm so glad that you got a lot from the course. You know, from our side of teachers, we got a lot from working with you as well, like super inspired. I definitely
Many
want
thanks.
to revisit the Italo disco playlist for this Friday afternoon as well. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to stop the recording now and just want to say thanks again, Tim. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Cheers, Dan.